Pokemon have created a MOBA, and it is incredibly well designed with amazing concepts that really work. There's a reason why I and many other players have played thousands of matches of Pokemon Unite. However, the game has many shortfalls, not all of which are poorly intended. In fact, a lot of them have great concepts that are being poorly executed. And if the execution of the concept was refined, this game would potentially be the biggest MOBA to ever exist. Let's talk about them. Starting with number one, and no, it's not the matchmaking, it's the ranking system itself. Matchmaking feels terrible because of how players are ranked. It should be exceptionally hard to reach the top rank, which we know as Masters. In fact, I feel like I should be struggling to hit the top rank. The game is designed for people with below 50% win rate to climb to Masters and hit 1600 ELO if they just play enough games. This will inherently decrease the quality of our in-game experiences because it creates invalid data for MMR to determine if it's been a successful or an unsuccessful matchmaking process. Claims are made that 93% of matches have a fair MMR, but the issue is that this MMR is constructed on poor data, yielding poor claims. In order to get better quality data, we need more rank classes. We need to split up the Masters class into three: Masters, Elite, and Legends. Each of these categories can have their own ELO to climb to reach the next rank. This would help MMR a lot to distinguish putting an Ultra/Masters player into the same lobby as, for example, a Legends player. Because as we currently stand, the MMR thinks, sweet, we've got the player who's on the cusp of Ultra/Masters, and this guy fits well with the other guy who's in Masters. But the other Masters guy is incredibly well skilled at the game, could be ranked 500 in the world, and the skill gap is truly noticeable. And the latest issue on the chopping block is draft mode. Like, what? Every player needs to be above 1400 ELO? Do you know the probability of being put in a draft match? As in how frequently this is going to happen? Let me walk you through it. Let's start unpacking the problem. Given that you want to be in a draft lobby, you need to be 1400 plus ELO. So what ELO do you actually need to be to enjoy draft in ranked? And how many days into the season until we get them more regularly? And will going higher in ELO increase your probability of having a draft mode experience in ranked? Well, firstly, if you're 1400 ELO, then in order to play draft, you must be the lowest ELO player in the game. And assuming all things have been spread evenly, you have about a 10% chance for that to happen. Secondly, considering a very simplified version of MMR, matches tend to equalize the ELO spread on each team, meaning there's essentially an ELO average. So if you think about it carefully, the ELO average of 1400 won't give you draft mode. In fact, an ELO average of 1600 mightn't even give you a draft. Because if you're 1900 ELO, very high in ELO, the game will generally pair you with a lower ELO counterpart to achieve this ELO average. So you could be 1900 and the game pairs you with someone who's 1300 to hit the 1600 average. And because that person is lower than 1400, you don't get draft mode. Therefore, being a higher ELO won't necessarily increase your probability of getting draft into ranked, unless we see a change to the algorithm for MMR. To maximize the chances of draft, you'll need to get the average ELO to have a smaller range when we're calculating that average. This, however, is going to bring in many issues, such as longer wait times for matches, or potentially facing higher ping games because you need to be paired internationally to get that lower range achieved. I think the more appropriate way of facing this is to change the ranking system itself. Back to the first point. A bit of adjustment is the CC. Adding an item to reduce the stun effects and crowd control, like a Tenacity increaser. A big complaint I hear is that it's really unenjoyable to play without the amount of CC. And honestly, full heal sucks. A held item to decrease stunning effects would be great, and I think a lot of players would use it. Honestly, I think we just need to remove the TrioQ altogether. This would do two things. It would enhance the competitive scene because it would encourage 5 stacking more often. The TrioQ is like a poor man's 5 stack. When you're in a trio, you have a lot of control over the map. You control the middle area and an entire lane. You have the flexibility to use support, a carry, and a backline damage. It controls the flow of the game too much. Being paired against a good trio when you're in a duo and you're paired with another duo is simply unfair. And if you're playing solos and you get paired with a trio that is not as good as the enemy trio, and your trio decides to play 3 attackers, you pretty much just lose the game as the solo queue player. It's not fun for the non-trio queue players. In my opinion, I think it just needs to be removed. It'll make the experience for solo and duo queuers a lot better, and I think it will encourage people to play 5 stacks more often. In the lobby, when we're selecting our Pokemon, why can't we be told if our teammates are in a duo queue or a trio queue together? I just don't understand the big secret. So that the duos paired are next to each other in that screen. But why can't we just be told with colored names or colored borders or something like that? It's such a small and simple change that would improve the quality of the game, because generally the duos want to go in the lane together, and more often than not, the solo player will want to interrupt these 2 duo guys laning together, and I think a lot of the time it comes down to them just not actually understanding that they're a duo and they just want to play together. Now the 5th thing, considering how small and short matches are in Unite, I just think it's necessary to have a new map every year. Nothing too crazy, just small changes enough to spice the game up. Each competitive season, I think, needs a new map. Otherwise, create a more complex map with a 15-minute match, because as it stands, the 10-minute smaller map gets a little stale, and I'm definitely feeling it the second time round using it in the second year. Sky Ruins is feeling very bland for a lot of players, and it just doesn't help the game grow. Pokemon producers, please, we need a new map. For the love of God, it'd make the game so much better. Nothing crazy, just some small changes. A nerf to auto-attacking moves or skills that just lock on and do damage. These skills or auto-attacks I don't think should be doing any AoE damage, or if they are, it should be very, very minuscule. And they shouldn't be providing CC in that AoE damage. The reason why Pokemon like Dragapult and Glaceon are terrifying and just terrorizing the meta is because of their AoE ability with their skills and autos and how much damage they do. It's just too much reward for a low skill cap Pokemon. Don't get me wrong, I'm all for making the game more accessible. It brings in more people. Please, keep introducing low skill cap point and click moves. That's not the problem. The problem is how strong these moves are. And you can see it at Worlds, and you can see it in a competitive scene. These Pokemon are being used the most at the competitive level. This is the highest skilled players using the lowest skill cap Pokemon because of how strong they are. I actively promote new players to use low skill cap Pokemon, but they shouldn't be the strongest in the meta. We should be rewarding high skill cap Pokemon for high skill cap players. Another thing is some more communication from the developers. We haven't really heard anything since like Mewtwo Y, which is very confusing. Like, just let us know what's going on with the game. El Chico Eevee shouldn't be doing all the decoding and getting all the leaks to inform the community about what's going on. Our last producer's letter was from August 2023 or something like that. It just, more communication, let people know what's going on. That way it builds a community of trust and we know what we can anticipate rather than having to get some dude to do some data mining and inform everyone. So if you've watched to the end, let me know if you think I've left anything out or if I'm being too harsh on any of these points. Nonetheless, let's enjoy the game as we've got it, because when our X licenses come back, the meta is not going to be in the fantastic spot it's currently in.